Have you ever noticed that there are a lot of so-called realities regarding becoming older that aren't actually true? Things like, if you live alone, you must be lonely. Or, if you downsize, it means you've given up. Come on, people start believing half of these things since they are simply myths that we have been given so frequently. Here's the worst part, though. They have the ability to subtly drain the joy from your daily existence if you fall for them. Today, we will take a hammer to those lies, crush them to pieces, and examine what is genuinely true. Here's a brief preview for you. After reading this, you may understand why living alone in your senior years can be the most liberating, unexpected, and occasionally even enjoyable phase of your life. First of all, loneliness is a result of living alone. Of all the misconceptions, this one is arguably the most widespread. People instantly think that your life must resemble a depressing movie scenario when they hear the terms old and alone in the same sentence. One plate of soup on the table, dim lighting, and perhaps you are conversing with a cat that obviously doesn't give a damn about your troubles. Here's the reality, though. You are not necessarily lonely if you live alone. The number of people around you is not a factor in loneliness. It has to do with how you feel about the things and people who are important to you. Compared to folks in their 40s with 2 children and a mortgage, I know seniors who live alone and have more social schedules. One of my neighbors lived alone and was in his late 70s, but he never missed Sunday dinners at his daughter's house, charity work, or weekly chess nights. Here's the reverse of what he used to say when he laughed. I don't live alone. I live in between events. If no one is truly interacting with you, you can live with family and still feel the most alone person in the world. Simply put, living alone requires you to make an effort to maintain relationships. For example, phoning a long-lost buddy, joining a reading club, or simply striking up a conversation with the grocery store cashier. Those little exchanges can sometimes make your entire day happier. Living alone does not ensure loneliness, although it does exist. And that's a significant difference in hope. Second, independence entails taking care of things on your own. Since it seems noble, this one is cunning, isn't it? It's true that independence is about taking care of oneself, but we've perverted it into the obstinate notion that asking for assistance equates to losing your independence. Nothing could be further from the truth than that. Consider it. We never actually did everything on our own, even as children. When cooking felt like a battlefield, we contacted tow trucks, hired plumbers, and ordered takeaway. However, as we reach our 70s, people assume that being independent implies cleaning every tile in the house, repairing every appliance, and scaling ladders to change light bulbs like we're circus performers. Independence isn't that. That is needless anxiety and occasionally even peril. Making decisions is the essence of true independence. One man I know always says, I'd rather pay the kid down the street $50 than pay the hospital $5,000 for a broken hip. He's absolutely right when he says, I want to live on my terms safely and comfortably. If that means hiring someone to mow the lawn so you don't throw your back out, that's smart, not weak. Therefore, independence does not mean working alone. It's having the discernment to select the course that maintains you resilient and strong, as well as recognizing what you can manage and what you should assign. That is true freedom. Third, shrinking equates to surrender. It seems like a lot of individuals are affected by this. Moving from the large family house to a smaller one, or even just getting rid of years' worth of belongings, is perceived as a way to reduce the size of your existence. Downsizing can be one of the most liberating decisions you ever make, but it's like you're waving a white flag and saying, well, that's it for me. Better start fading into the background. I once went to see an old acquaintance who had recently moved into a 2-bedroom flat from a 4-bedroom home. He was apprehensive at first. The house, the yard, and the garage full of items he hadn't touched since Clinton was in office were things he believed he would miss. But 6 months later, he was radiant. According to what he said, I exchanged tension for breathing space. He was no longer concerned about heating empty rooms, mowing, or repairing the leaky roof. Rather, he used that energy to travel, paint, and indulge his grandchildren. Your world doesn't get smaller when you downsize. It indicates you're setting priorities. You're getting rid of upkeep, clutter, and items that are no longer useful to you. At this point in your life, you are literally and symbolically making room for the things that truly make you happy. Therefore, see downsizing as an upgrade to a simpler, more liberated form of life rather than as a surrender. Less clutter to avoid, less housework to do, and more time to savor the things that bring you delight. I don't think that sounds like surrender. It sounds like victory. Fourth, making the house a hospital is necessary for safety. This is the mental image that most people have. They instantly see your home as a hospital ward with grab bars protruding everywhere, plastic matting that creak underfoot, and a cumbersome medical alert system that resembles a dog collar the moment you bring up the topic of safety in old age. It makes sense why so many elderly people are reluctant to make safety adjustments. They don't want their comfortable house to become a sterile, sad place. Here's the reality, though. It's not necessary for safety to appear clinical. These days, a home may be made safe without feeling like a nursing home by using elegant, understated, and even fashionable methods. I know an 80-year-old woman who replaced her slick carpeting with a stunning non-slip one that made her living room look brighter. Another man I know had grabbers built, which are slick, covert, and not at all welcoming. They resemble contemporary towel racks. The idea of safety is to live more comfortably and self-assuredly without sacrificing your dignity. It's about making adjustments that allow you to enjoy your house without thinking about potential problems all the time. Consider it this way. Your automobile didn't feel like an ambulance after you installed seatbelts, did it? Your house is no different. With a little careful preparation, safety turns into freedom rather than restriction. And between us, I'd rather grab a pub than go to the ER any day. 5. Young people should use technology. I can disregard it. Oh, this one. I constantly hear that. All that computer stuff is too advanced for me. Allow the children to play with it. Here's the worst part, though. Young people are no longer the only ones using technology. Quite a bit of it was actually created with you in mind. At first glance, it simply doesn't always appear that way. Ignoring modern technology is akin to not using a phone in the 1960s. You could survive without it, of course, but given how much easier life is with it, why would you? Smartphones are for more than simply continuous scrolling and TikTok dancing. They serve as lifelines. They allow you to video chat with grandchildren who reside on the other side of the nation. They serve as a reminder to take your medication. They also allow you to order groceries without having to fight your way through congested aisles. A man in his 70s once told me he would never use a smartphone. Then he received one from his daughter, who assembled it using just 2 items: WhatsApp for voice assistance and family calls. In less than a week, he was boasting that he could get the weather report by simply asking aloud. Here's a secret, he informed me. It's like having a butler who never complains. Gaining knowledge of technology does not make you less traditional. It simply means you're providing yourself with additional resources to remain independent, safe, and connected. You don't have to be a social media influencer or a coding prodigy. Simply choose the tools that work best for you. Because being trendy isn't really the point of technology. It's about participating in the discussions and comforts that enhance life. 6. It's not worth cooking for just one. I understand why this misunderstanding persists. It can seem like too much work to cook for only one person. Cooking for a family used to be far more fun than cleaning pans, chopping vegetables, and then sitting at the table by yourself with a plate that looks much less spectacular. Why bother is an easy thought to have, and either live off of peanut butter sandwiches or get a frozen supper. Here's the problem, though. There is so much more to cooking for oneself than just food. It's about loving oneself as much as you would love someone else. Every Friday night, my friend, A retired teacher who lives alone makes it a point to set the table with her finest plate and a small candle. I was struck by her response when I asked why. Because I'm worth the good dishes too. A 5-course meal is not necessary when cooking for one person. It might be as easy as preparing a large pot of soup on Sunday and consuming it throughout the week, or it can be as easy as attempting a new dish simply for fun. Furthermore, there's a liberating quality to it. You have complete control over how the meal is seasoned. No more avoiding spicy peppers because they couldn't stand the heat or reserving the garlic because someone else complained. Your taste buds are in command when you prepare meals for yourself, not to mention the health aspect. It's easy to fall into bad habits when you live alone. In contrast, eating healthily provides you more energy, maintains mental clarity, and improves your mood in ways that takeaway never will. Furthermore, leftovers are essentially a present from your former self for the future. What about self-care? Therefore, preparing for one person is not useless. It's among the best methods to remind oneself every day that you are important because you are. 7. After 70, you don't make new pals. This one is so far from the reality that it always makes me smile. Somewhere along the line, people began to think that the buddy factory simply stops working once you reach a certain age, as if all of life's deep connections had to be made in high school, at work, or during those hectic years of raising a family. But that's absurd, as you and I both know. There is no age restriction for friendship. It simply manifests itself differently. Friendships develop in childhood due of closeness. In class, you are seated next to someone. You share a cubicle at work. Your children play football together. However, friendships form out of choice after the age of 70. You meet folks who are not simply in your zip code, but who genuinely have similar interests. Because of this, those ties may be much more valuable. In order to get some exercise, a man I know joined a walking group at the age of 72. After 3 years, that same group has essentially become his second family. Together, they take short vacations, they commemorate birthdays, and before he could call a plumber, 2 of them arrived with wrenches when his water heater broke. The thing is this. Age is not the cause of loneliness. It stems from the idea that there is no way to connect. And it isn't. Every encounter is an opportunity for a spark. Whether it's at a senior center dance, your neighborhood reading club, or simply chatting with your neighbor while you check your mail. Even knowing how to utilize WhatsApp or Facebook can lead to opportunities. I've witnessed folks revive connections from high school after 50 years due to a single web message. Therefore, shrug it off if someone tells you that finding new acquaintances is impossible after the age of 70. That would be like to claiming you're too old to find humor in a good joke. There is space for connection as long as you are alive. Later in life, when you truly understand who you are and the kind of people you want in your life, you may make the best friends. 8. Falls are simply unlucky. There is nothing to do about it. Yes, the old falls just happen mentality. Falling isn't a random occurrence, yet I can't count the number of times I've heard someone say, "Well, I tripped because I'm clumsy," or "That's just old age for you." Little things piling up, a dim light bulb, a slick rug, shoes that should have been discarded years ago, or even not drinking enough water and feeling lightheaded are the main causes. I used to know a man who consistently disregarded his doctor's recommendations on balance exercises. Then he stumbled over his own dog one day. He initially dismissed it, but after suffering a sprained wrist, he later acknowledged, "I guess my dog wasn't the problem, my balance was." He began performing basic stretches and strength exercises, and within a few months, he was moving around with greater assurance. He even made a joke about how his dog was now safer. In actuality, there are numerous ways to avoid falls. Improved illumination, balance exercises, strength training, and grab bars that don't resemble jail bars. Recall, it all adds up, even if you're only wearing appropriate shoes. Here's the worst part. Avoiding injuries isn't the only goal of fall prevention. It has to do with defending your freedom, because one unfortunate fall can lead to hospital stays, a loss of independence, and a great deal of unnecessary frustration. Consider it this way. Nobody claims that auto accidents are purely unlucky and that there is nothing to be done. We drive cautiously, buckle up, and maintain our vehicles. How come falls should be any different? Being cautious does not imply weakness. You become intelligent as a result. You're giving yourself the best chance to continue doing the activities you enjoy, stay mobile, and avoid spending your evenings staring at an emergency room ceiling. Falls aren't just bad luck then. They can be avoided. To be honest, one of the best insurance policies you can provide yourself for a more independent, worry-free existence is to put in a little effort to prevent falls. 9. Treats are out of the question on tight budgets. I understand what you're thinking now. The chocolates aren't winning if I have to choose between buying a box of expensive chocolates and paying my electricity bill. All right. Here's the problem, though. It's not necessary for treats to be costly. Somewhere along the line, people began to associate treating oneself with purchasing an ostentatious item, such as a brand new automobile or a trip. In reality, though, a treat is simply something that gives you a sense of vitality, care, and the best kind of spoiling. I know a woman in her 70s who had a very tight budget. She told me that every Friday morning, she would get one fresh croissant from the nearby bakery as her weekly pleasure. One. Only one. She would enjoy that as if it were a Michelin-starred lunch while sipping her tea and sitting by the window. In all honesty, she wasn't incorrect when she used to chuckle and remark that croissant is cheaper than therapy. Believing the lie puts you at risk of depriving yourself of happy days because you believe you cannot afford them. However, happiness doesn't necessarily have a cost. Taking a guilt-free afternoon snooze or taking a hot bath with those fancy-smelling salts you've been saving are examples of treats. Saying yes to the pie slice at the diner or buying flowers for yourself from the grocery store's bargain section are two examples. Life is too brief to live as though every dollar is a jail guard. The deeper section comes next. Treats are important because they serve as a reminder of your value. Living on a limited budget can quickly put you in survival mode, food, medication, bills, and so on. However, adding small pleasures to your life tells your brain, hey, I'm not just existing, I'm living. That mental change is invaluable. 10. It is unlucky to plan for emergencies. The superstition trap, huh? You're aware of it. Your home will undoubtedly catch fire if you get a fire extinguisher. The Grim Reaper will come knocking on your door the following morning if you make a will. People seem to believe that making plans in advance invites tragedy in a cosmic way. However, let me assure you that is not how life operates. Planning is a shield, not a sign. Because he believed it would jinx it, a man I know refused to write down his emergency contacts. Then one day he tripped and wound up in the emergency room, and since his daughter's number wasn't written anywhere, no one could get in touch with her for hours. Following that terrifying experience, he eventually acknowledged that having a plan would have prevented a great deal of anxiety and time spent waiting for someone to deliver his dentures while starving. The fact is that emergencies are inevitable. It just depends on when. You don't have to live in terror because of that. It indicates that you are ready for anything. It doesn't increase the likelihood of these occurrences to plan for them. It lessens their destructive power. We maintain a first aid kit in the car and wear seatbelts for the same reason. And now for the amusing twist. You actually worry less once you make a strategy. You've given yourself the gift of peace of mind by saying, if something happens, I've got this, rather than lying awake at night wondering, what if something happens? It's not unlucky. That's intelligent living. Therefore, reject the myth that preparation entices fate. Your papers doesn't matter to fate. Simply said, preparation puts the odds in your favor. Really, isn't it what we're all aiming for? A little stability, a little tranquility, and the ability to enjoy life without needless concern. That's it. 10 of the most common misconceptions about living alone as you age. Completely ruptured. It's not about being alone, giving up, or constantly fearing the worse. It's about having autonomy, making decisions, and finding happiness in the small things that make your life unique. Yes, there are difficulties, but once you live alone, most of the frightening things people say about it simply aren't true. Please remember to hit like, share this with a friend who might be in need of encouragement, and subscribe if this resonated with you or reminded you that you're doing better than you imagined. Together, we can continue to dispel these stereotypes. Hey, be careful. Keep a smile on your face, and never forget that opening the refrigerator and seeing leftovers you don't even remember preparing is the only thing scarier than living alone. The wonderful thing is that you've earned the freedom to laugh at the little things, take pleasure in the solitude of your own home, and live your life as you see fit. Loneliness isn't that. Freedom is that, and that's something to celebrate, in my opinion.